Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a concept that I think haunts a lot of us, usually at 3 a.m. when we can't sleep.
Hmm.
It's this idea of two lives. You know that old Confucius saying?
Oh, yeah. We have two lives, and the second begins when we realize we only have one.
Exactly. And, it's a classic for a reason. It usually implies like a midlife crisis or some big epiphany about following your dreams.
Sure, changing careers, leaving a bad relationship, that sort of thing. But today, the story we're getting into, it's a much darker, much more literal take on that idea.
Right. We're asking a really fundamental question. Is there a difference between simply surviving, just keeping your head above water, holding your breath, biologically existing, and actually living?
And that's a key distinction. We tend to conflate the two. We think if we're breathing, we're living.
But are we? I mean, if you've spent your entire existence just trying to get through the next minute, do you even have the toolkit to start living when the danger finally stops? Or is living, in its own way, actually more dangerous than surviving?
That's the core question, isn't it? The source material we're covering today argues that they're two entirely different states of being, almost like different elements. One is just this biological necessity.
A series of hard stops and starts, as the book puts it.
Right. And the other, living, is a run-on sentence. It's a collection of choices and connections, and most importantly, vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And to explore all of this, we are unpacking the first 8 chapters of the novel Where the Wildflowers Grow by Terah Shelton Harris.
And for anyone listening, you have to know, don't let that title fool you.
No, this is not some soft pastoral romance about gardening.
Not at all. It starts as a full-on survival thriller that literally crashes into this quiet, intense drama about identity and grief and healing.
It starts with a bang. Or,
Right,
maybe
exactly.
more accurately, a screech of metal and a sudden plunge into water. We are following our protagonist, Leandra, who goes by Leigh.
And she's a prisoner.
She's a prisoner on a transport bus in South Carolina, and within the first few pages, it's clear this isn't a story about parole or getting out early. We're talking about a catastrophic event that, for all intents and purposes, erases her entire existence.
The crash is like a violent rebirth. The book opens with this phrase that I think just sets the tone for everything. The cruel poetry of drowning.
Oh, that phrase. I had to stop and reread that. Cruel poetry.
It's perfect, right? Because the whole opening is incredibly visceral. The bus crashes into a ravine, into deep water, and Harris forces you to confront the sensory experience of death.
But it's not loud. That's what struck me. After the initial impact, it's quiet. Leigh describes the silence, the water rushing in, and this really chilling image of 3 pairs of eyes watching her.
That detail is terrifying, but it tells you so much about her mental state right away. She's underwater, she's holding her breath, which we'll get to, and she's just looking at the people who were alive a moment ago.
Officer Manziel, Officer Downey, and the other prisoner, Loretta.
They're dead, suspended in the water. And Leigh isn't screaming, she isn't thrashing or panicking, she's just observing.
She's even projecting stories onto them. She looks at Officer Manziel and remembers he missed his daughter's birthday party. It's almost like she's detaching from her own immediate danger to focus on the tragedy of their lost lives.
I think it's a classic dissociation response. In a moment of extreme trauma like that, the brain it unplugs from the physical threat to process how surreal the event is, but there's a physical reason she can do this too.
Right. We need to explain this part. She describes herself as she has wild lungs, which means she can hold her breath for an unnaturally long time. While everyone else likely drowned in the initial impact or the ensuing panic, she is just sitting there, suspended.
She calls it the in-between. And that's a concept we're going to come back to again and again today. The in-between is that space between life and death, obviously. But for Leigh, it's also the space between her old life as inmate Leandra Wild and, well, whatever comes next. She is literally waiting in the water, in that silence, deciding whether to join the dead or return to the world of the living.
And this is where we hit the first major moral dilemma of the book. And I think this is the moment the character really, really grabbed me.
Yes.
She doesn't just swim away. She has the lung capacity. She could just kick for the surface and save herself, no question. But she sees Officer Madison.
And we need to give some context on Officer Madison because she isn't just a guard. In a prison system, the dynamic is almost always adversarial. But the text says that Madison showed Leigh familiarity.
That one word, familiarity, it's doing so much work in that sentence.
It is. Leigh makes a point to distinguish it from being friendly, which can be fake or patronizing. Familiar implies that Madison recognized her humanity.
And she had done something for her earlier, right? on the bus.
Yes. Madison was the guard who loosened Leigh's cuffs earlier in the trip. Just a small act of kindness. She treated her like a person with circulation, not just a number.
And that small act of kindness, loosening the cuffs, is the only reason Leigh is even able to move her hands right now. It's probably the only reason she isn't dead at the bottom of that ravine with everyone else.
Exactly. It's like grace begets grace. Because Madison inadvertently saved her life, Leigh feels this overwhelming compulsion to try and save Madison's.
So she swims over to her, she's pulling at her legs, trying to get her free, and she's burning through her own precious oxygen reserves to do it.
And not just to free her. When she realizes she can't, she stays. She holds Madison's hand while the woman dies.
It's just a heartbreaking moment. She is actively risking her own life, burning through the air in her lungs, just to comfort the woman who was, for all intents and purposes, her jailer. It tells you everything you need to know about who Leigh is at her core.
Absolutely. She's not some cold-blooded criminal. She's a person capable of immense empathy, even in the most terrifying circumstance imaginable.
Which makes her next decision so much more powerful.
Right. So Officer Madison dies. Leigh realizes she can't save her. She finally kicks for the surface, and she sees the wreckage, the isolation of the ravine, and she understands that no one is coming. Not for a long time.
And she has this thought, I was a ghost now. I died too.
That's the hook. That is the literal moment her second life begins. She makes the conscious choice to walk away. She's not going to wait for rescue. She decides right then and there that Leandra Wild died in that ravine and someone else is walking out of these woods.
We have to pause on the psychology of that for a second, because it's not just a fugitive running to avoid more jail time.
No, it's an existential break. A complete shedding of her identity, along with her prison clothes. She decides to become invisible.
And as we quickly learn, invisibility is a skill she's been practicing her entire life. This isn't something new she's learning. It's a regression. It's her going back to her childhood settings.
Yeah, let's go deep on that backstory for a minute because it explains everything. She didn't just learn how to survive in the woods overnight. The book gives us these really potent flashbacks to her childhood in Berkeley County, South Carolina.
And her father. Wow. Daddy was a complicated figure.
Complicated is a very generous word. He was deeply paranoid, profoundly distrustful of the government, and, it seems like he was likely suffering from an undiagnosed condition like schizophrenia. He heard voices.
He called them the ancestors.
Right, and he believed they were giving him instructions, telling him how to prepare, how to survive the coming apocalypse he was so sure was on its way.
And because of that paranoia, he kept his daughters, Leigh and her sister Leila, completely off the grid.
I mean, completely. No birth certificates, no school records, no social security numbers. They didn't exist on paper. They were ghosts long before that bus ever hit the water.
It's wild to think about that in modern America, just not existing in any official capacity. But it explains why she's so good at slipping through the cracks.
It does. And her dad, he taught them survival skills like they were child soldiers preparing for a war.
The breath holding, for one.
The breath holding, how to start fires with nothing but sticks, how to fish without lines or hooks, all of it.
But there's a line in the text that really it chilled me. Leigh says that she and her sister were treated as currency or puppets.
It's a horrific concept for a child to internalize. Currency. It implies their value was purely transactional. They existed only to serve their father's delusion or to be used in whatever exchanges he had with the outside world. He didn't raise them to be independent women.
No.
He raised them to be extensions of his own survival instinct.
And the ultimate tragedy of it all, as Leigh points out in her narration, is that all that survival training, it didn't save the family. Her sister Leila is dead. Her mother is dead. Leigh is the survivor left to tell the story. So all that preparation, it was for what?
Well, it prepared her for this one specific horrific moment in the ravine, but it left her completely emotionally hollow. She knows how to survive the woods, but she has absolutely no idea how to live in the world.
And we see the psychological cost of that trauma in her sleepwalking.
The sleepwalking is such a brilliant detail. It only happens when she's under extreme stress.
She unlocks doors in her sleep, and she says she's always looking for sweeter air.
It's the physical manifestation of her lifelong desire to escape. Even when her conscious mind is asleep, her subconscious is still trying to run. It creates this constant low-level tension in the book.
Right. She could be so disciplined and controlled when she's awake, so observant.
Right.
But when she sleeps, The wild part of her takes over.
And that puts her at risk. She could wander into danger, she could expose herself. It just shows that you can leave the prison, but the primal need to escape doesn't just turn off with a switch.
So let's track her movements. She climbs out of the ravine. She's survived the crash. Now she has to survive the world. And this is where the grit of the story really comes in. This is not some glamorous escape you see in the movies where the hero hotwires a Ferrari.
No, it is grotesque and it is practical. She has to loot the bodies.
Ooh, yeah. She goes back to the dead guards, the people she knew. She takes cash from their wallets.
And she takes Officer Madison's clothes and her ID.
But she apologizes while she does it. She keeps whispering, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry."
That apology is so crucial. It shows she isn't callous. She's desperate. It's a primal act of stripping the dead to save the living, and she hates that she has to do it.
She manages to hike out of the woods. She's hurt bruised ribs, a messed up wrist from the crash. And she finally makes it to a town. And the scene that follows, honestly, it might be my favorite scene in this entire first section.
The Dollar General.
The Dollar General. It sounds so mundane, so boring, but for her, it's like landing on another planet.
It really is. I mean, think about it. She hasn't been in a store in 5 years. She walks in, and the sensory overload just hits her like a physical blow.
The hum of the air conditioning, the bright fluorescent lights, all the colors.
It's such a stark contrast to the monochrome gray of prison and the green and brown of the woods. But the thing that really paralyzes her is the choice.
The potato chip.
The potato chips. You know, there's that famous study on the paradox of choice, how too many options can lead to anxiety and paralysis.
And she's living it. She's standing in the aisle, just staring. Cool Ranch, nacho cheese, BBQ, salt and vinegar. She sees a little kid just run up and grab a bag of barbecue chips without even thinking. And she feels this intense wave of jealousy.
Because she realizes she doesn't know what she likes. She has no preferences. In prison, you eat what you're given. In the woods with her father, you ate what you caught. She has never had the simple human autonomy to develop a favorite flavor of chip.
Blink, breathe, be. That's her mantra, to stop from having a full-blown panic attack in the chip aisle.
It really just drives home that difference between surviving and living, doesn't it? Surviving is just eating calories to stay alive. Living is choosing the flavor you actually want. And Leigh is just now realizing she doesn't have a self to make that choice.
But she also realizes something incredibly important in that store. The cashier ignores her. She pays for her stuff, and the cashier barely even looks up.
She's invisible.
Exactly. The thing she was most terrified of, that everyone would immediately know she's an escaped convict. It doesn't happen. To the world, she's just another customer with a bruised face. And that indifference, that invisibility, is the most valuable thing she could have right now.
But her body keeps betraying her. We have to talk about the physical toll of this escape. She's injured, she's exhausted, and then, just to add insult to injury,
She gets her period.
I am so glad the author included this detail. So many action movies and survival thrillers they completely ignore biological reality.
Right. You're on the run, you're bleeding, you're in pain, and your body's just doing its normal, natural cycle. It requires hygiene products you can't afford and clean bathrooms you can't easily access.
It grounds the narrative so much. She has to use a grimy gas station bathroom to clean herself up. She has to carefully count out her stolen cash to buy pads. It's not just, will the cops catch her? It's, can she stay clean enough to not look like a fugitive?
It just emphasizes her vulnerability. She's a human woman in a desperate situation. She can't just power through everything. She has to tend to her body.
So she manages to clean up. She catches a taxi to a town called Anderson. She buys a ticket for a Greyhound bus using a fake name, Leigh Smith.
But she almost gets caught. The bus driver asks for her ID. And of course, she doesn't have one that matches the ticket she bought.
And this is where she uses her trauma as a disguise. It's a brilliant, if heartbreaking, move.
She shows the driver the bruise on her face, the bruise from the crash, and she implies, without ever saying the words, that she's running from an abusive partner.
The unspoken implication of, he hits me.
And the driver's whole demeanor it softens instantly. He lets her on the bus.
It's a survival tactic.
Right.
She instinctively knows that society has a box for the battered woman, a sympathetic one, while it has a cage for the escaped convict. She has to wear the mask of one kind of victim to escape being treated as another kind of monster.
So she's on the bus. She's heading for Mississippi. She thinks she's finally made it. She's in the clear. But then the bus breaks down.
The intervention of fate, a random mechanical failure. If that bus keeps going, she disappears into Mississippi. The whole story is different, but the bus dies in Camden, Alabama.
And she's stranded. It's late at night. She has no money for a motel.
Hmm?
She finds a closed campground and just curls up under a tree to sleep.
And this is where the genre of the book shifts a little. We move from this high-octane survival thriller into something a bit more, I don't know, Southern Gothic, a bit more relational.
Because she meets Walt.
She meets Walt.
I love Walt. He finds a strange, bruised woman sleeping under a tree on his property. You know, in a different kind of story, a different kind of thriller, this goes very, very badly for her.
But Walt is the complete antithesis of every man Leigh has ever known. Think about her father, paranoid, controlling, using her. Think about Deacon Ridley, the predator from her childhood who used money and candy as leverage. Walt finds her, and instead of chasing her off or calling the cops, he offers her a job.
He needs someone to clean the cabins because his regular help, Beth, is away. He offers her a place to stay, a little rustic cabin. And then the scene that I think resonated with so many readers.
The fried chicken.
The fried chicken scene.
Yeah.
It's such a masterclass in writing about hunger. He brings her a plate of fried chicken and a dinner roll.
And Leigh is so hungry she practically inhales it. She says she tore through the roll in 2 bites. She doesn't even taste it at first. It's purely primal.
But then she looks up and realizes Walt is watching her. And she feels this wave of shame. She actually apologizes for eating like an animal.
And Walt just says, "You worked up an appetite." He completely restores her dignity in that one sentence. He doesn't look at her like she's a starving stray dog. He looks at her like she's a hard worker who needs fuel. And that restoration of dignity is almost more important to her than the food itself.
So he puts her up in a cabin. And the text makes a specific point to mention that there is a geese bend quilt on the bed.
Yes. Okay, we have to pause here. Because to the casual reader, that might just seem like a nice piece of local color, you know, some Alabama decor.
I'll admit, that's what I thought at first.
But it is so much more than that. This is critical to understanding the deepest themes of the book. Gee's Bend is a real place. It's a small, historically isolated Black community located in a sharp bend of the Alabama River, right across from Camden.
And they're famous for these quilts.
Famous is an understatement. They're national treasures now. They hang in the Whitney Museum. They've been on postage stamps. But they were born out of desperate necessity.
They were made from scraps, right? Old clothes and things.
Exactly. Old work clothes, cornmeal sacks, corduroy remnants, things other people would throw away. These women took things that were discarded, worn out, and considered useless, and they stitched them into these bold, improvisational, geometric masterpieces.
Wow. Okay, I see the connection now. Leigh. She's the quilt.
She is the quilt. She is a discarded person, a scrap of society that the prison system threw away. And she is trying to stitch together a new life from the broken pieces she has left. That quilt on her bed isn't just a blanket, it's a mirror. It's a prophecy of what she could become.
That is a beautiful, beautiful connection. And it also sets up the geography of the place because Gee's Bend isn't just famous for quilts, it's famous for being hard to get to.
Very hard to get to. We need to talk about the ferry. There used to be a ferry that connected Gee's Bend to the county seat in Camden, but in the 1960s, during the Civil Rights Movement, the white authorities in Camden shut the ferry down.
Why would they do that?
To stop the Black residents of Gee's Bend from crossing the river to register to vote. It was a literal physical act of voter suppression. It turned a 7-mile trip into a 45-mile drive. They cut the entire community off just to silence their political voice.
That is incredibly dark. So this whole place is defined by its isolation.
Yes, and by its resilience through isolation. They survived because they had no choice but to rely on each other. And when Leigh learns about this, about the isolation, the difficulty of getting there, she doesn't think about the politics or the history. She thinks one thing.
That sounds like a great place to hide.
Exactly.
So she's safe with Walt for the moment, but she knows she can't stay. She's just planning to work, earn enough cash, and then leave. But then she goes to the farmer's market in town.
And color returns to her world. Literally.
Yes. She sees this blue truck just filled to the brim with flowers. And after 5 years of prison gray and the dark greens and browns of the woods, the vibrancy is jarring. It's overwhelming. And it triggers memories of her sister Leila, who loved flowers.
And flowers are the central motif of life in this book, right? The title is Where the Wildflowers Grow. They represent resilience, beauty, and unexpected, untamed places. And the man standing in front of that truck
Is Jackson Shepherd.
Let's talk about Jackson.
He is described as rugged, handsome, he's wearing suspenders, it's the whole package. But he's also got a fresh cut above his eye. There's a hardness to him, too.
It's the classic meet-cute trope. But Harris completely subverts it. It's not this soft, romantic love at first sight. It's recognition. They just stare at each other. There's this intense, almost uncomfortable familiarity.
He sees her. He really sees her. And that is the last thing Leigh wants. It terrifies her.
She tries to help him. She kind of inadvertently helps him sell a bouquet to a customer as being difficult. And then he tries to give her the money from the sale.
And she freaks out.
She aggressively rejects it. I don't want your money.
Why, though? Most people in her desperate situation would snatch that cash and run.
Because in her entire life experience, charity has always been a trap. Remember Deacon Ridley? He gave her mother candy and money before he preyed on her. Our father gave food as a tool of control. She doesn't trust a gift that doesn't have a hook attached. She thinks if she takes Jackson's money, she owes him something. And she absolutely cannot afford to owe anyone anything right now.
Jackson is clearly confused by her reaction, but he's also intrigued. He says this line to her, "From there is too far." He's trying to close the distance between them.
But she needs that distance to feel safe. Her survival depends on it.
Still, despite how awkward and aggressive she was, Jackson tracks her down. He delivers a bouquet of flowers to her cabin at the campground.
With a note that just repeats that line.
From there is too far. And Walt, seeing the flowers, explains that Jackson is the guy who owns the only flower farm over in Gee's Bend.
And this is where the idea solidifies in Leigh's mind. She decides to go scout out Gee's Bend for herself. She takes the long way around, since there's no ferry, and she starts wandering into the woods. She thinks she can just live out there, camp in the deep woods where no one ever goes.
But she stumbles right onto his property, the flower farm, and she meets Luke.
Luke. He's the perfect foil for Jackson. He's the younger brother, figure chatty, funny, a little bit reckless. He's the complete opposite of Jackson's quiet, brooding intensity.
And he's clearing land with a machete, and he just invites her to help. A total stranger.
And this is such a crucial moment. Leigh finds peace in that hard physical labor. She takes the machete and she just starts clearing brush, and she's good at it. She's faster than Luke.
She's reconnecting with the earth. Remember, the one good thing her father ever gave her was a deep knowledge of nature. She knows how to swing a blade. She knows how to work. For the first time since the bus crash, she feels competent. She isn't a fugitive or a victim. She's a worker.
And then Jackson shows up and catches her there.
The tension in that truck when he drives her back to town is so thick. But he doesn't call the cops on her for trespassing. He does the opposite.
He offers her a job.
And he says this line to her, this incredibly perceptive line. He says, "No scars are invisible."
That is such a heavy thing to say to a stranger you've just met twice.
It really is.
He's basically telling her, I know you're hiding something. I see the bruise on your face. I see the way you flinch. I see the desperation. But I don't care about the story. I see the strength. He recognizes a kindred spirit in her, someone who has been broken and is trying to put the pieces back together. He's offering her sanctuary.
But she refuses. She's still so scared. She says, "Nope, thanks, I'm going to Mississippi." She has her backpack. She is ready to bolt that night.
She even goes to a town hall meeting, not because she cares about local politics, but because she figures she can slip away while everyone is distracted.
And that town hall scene is where we see Jackson's character really come into focus. He's not just a flower farmer. He's a community leader.
He's pitching this massive, ambitious idea, a flower co-op. He wants to save the town of Camden, which is dying economically, by turning it into a major seed manufacturing hub.
He's putting everything he has on the line. He stands up in front of all these skeptical people and says he's willing to sign over the deed to his own family farm to make this co-op happen.
It's radical generosity. He understands that for the community to survive, they have to work together, not just for themselves. And that has to resonate with Leigh, who's been in every person for themselves mode for her entire life. Jackson is modeling a completely different way to exist in the world.
She's watching him, mesmerized. But she still walks out. She leaves the meeting. She's walking down the empty street, ready to vanish into the night for good. And then she glances through a restaurant window at a TV screen.
The news. The breaking news report.
This is it. This is the moment the entire story pivots. Up until now, it's been a chase story. Now it becomes a ghost story.
What does the screen say?
The headline reads, "Guards and prisoners presumed dead."
They found the bus wreckage. They found the bodies in the ravine. And because Leigh was listed on the transport manifest, and because the water was so deep and the current so strong, they assume her body was washed away. They assume she drowned with everyone else.
Can you just imagine the feeling in that moment? The sheer physical release of that. The dogs are called off. The helicopters are grounded. They aren't looking for Leandra Wild anymore.
It's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card.
It is. But It's also a different kind of cage, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, think about it. If she was just a missing fugitive, there's always a theoretical chance she could clear her name or turn herself in years later or live on the run. But now, to stay free, she has to stay dead.
That's a great point. She can never contact anyone from her past. She can never use her real name again. She can never get a legal job, a driver's license, a bank account. She has to be completely and totally erased.
She becomes a ghost in the machine. She has to commit to the lie 100% for the rest of her life.
And that realization changes her entire plan. If she's dead, she doesn't have to run to Mississippi. She doesn't have to keep moving. She just has to stay hidden. And what better place to hide than a remote farm in an isolated community that is already, by its very history, cut off from the rest of the world?
So she makes a split-second decision. She runs back to find Jackson. She finds him in the street and just says, "I changed my mind." She takes the job.
It's a moment of incredible relief, but it's also a moment of immense danger. She's intertwining her life, her lie, with Jackson's. She's moving on to his farm. She's accepting his offer of sanctuary, but she's doing it under the ultimate false pretense. She's not just Leigh Smith, a woman down on her luck. She's Leandra Wild, a convicted murderer, at least in the eyes of the law, who is supposed to be dead.
So she moves into the little cabin on the farm, and she meets the rest of the crew. There's Luke, of course, and then there's Tib.
Tib is such a great character. He's this sophisticated Creole floral artist who seems totally out of place on a dirt farm in rural Alabama, but he fits in perfectly. It's this little found family, Jackson, Luke, Tib. They have a rhythm, a brotherhood. And Leigh is the new unknown element stepping into it.
But Jackson lays down the law on her first day. He looks her right in the eye and tells her, trust is at the heart of everything. He says he hates liars.
The irony is just. It's thick enough to cut with a knife. She is living the biggest lie imaginable. And her new boss, the man giving her shelter, is obsessed with honesty and trust. It sets up this ticking time bomb under their entire relationship.
And he's so observant, he notices her shoes are wrong. She's wearing sneakers to work in the muddy fields.
And he gets mad. He kind of scolds her. You need boots.
To an outsider, he might sound like a jerk boss. But it's coming from a place of protection, isn't it?
It is. He knows the work is dangerous. He mentions he got a nasty cut from a fallen tree once. He wants her to be safe. But Leigh reacts so defensively because she can't just go buy boots. She has no money left. She can't just go to the store and swipe a credit card. Her poverty, which is enforced by her fugitive status, is a constant, humiliating barrier.
And Luke, sweet Luke, solves the problem. He says his sister left some old work boots behind. So it's another instance of Leigh stepping into someone else's shoes, literally. First Officer Madison's clothes, now Luke's sister's boots.
She is constantly borrowing identities, piecing herself together from the scraps of other people's lives, just like the G's Bend quilt.
And then, just when she starts to maybe, possibly, feel a tiny bit settled, the complication arises.
Carly
Sutterfield, the ex-girlfriend, the neighbor, the owner of the land that Jackson needs for the co-op.
And Leigh sees them together, Jackson and Carly, and she feels this sharp pang of jealousy, which completely confuses her.
Because she's supposed to be dead.
Exactly. She told herself, I was a ghost. Ghosts don't get jealous. Ghosts don't develop crushes on their brooding, handsome bosses. The fact that she cares who Carly is means she's failing at being dead. She's accidentally starting to live again.
And it's not just romantic jealousy, is it? It's something deeper.
No, I don't think so. It's jealousy of belonging. Carly belongs there. She has roots in that town, a history. She has a son, Benny. Leigh has none of that. She's a tumbleweed. Seeing Carly is a painful reminder of everything she can't have. A name, a family, a past that she can talk about.
And we end this section of the book with a physical manifestation of all that internal struggle. She's out working in the fields, chopping down flowers for arrangements, but she's doing it with way too much aggression.
She's taking all her frustration and fear out on the plants. She's just hacking at them. And her wrist, the same one she injured in the bus crash, flares up. She's in agonizing pain.
And Luke notices. He comes over and says, they are already dead. You don't have to kill them again.
That line is so heavy. Leigh is trying to kill her past. She's trying to kill her pain. But you can't just chop it away. That old injury flaring up is her body literally telling her, you are not healed. You can change your name, you can change your clothes, but your bones remember the crash. The trauma is still in you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on these first 8 chapters, let's circle all the way back to the beginning. We have a woman who has survived a drowning, faked her own death, and landed in a field of wildflowers. What is the big takeaway for you here?
I think the big takeaway is about the cost of living. Survival is free. It's instinct. You kick, you swim, you breathe. That's just biology. But living, actually living a life, that costs you something. It costs vulnerability. It costs connection. It costs trust.
And Leigh has survived. But now, on this farm, surrounded by these people who seem to want to be her family, she's being asked to pay the price of living.
She has to trust them. She has to open up. And every time she does, every small connection she makes, she risks exposure. She is building a sanctuary on a foundation of lies. It's a beautiful house of cards in the middle of a windstorm.
No scars are invisible. That's what Jackson says to her.
And he's right. She thinks she's hiding everything, but Jackson sees the scars. He sees the bruise on her face, sure, but he also sees the flinch when he moves too fast. He sees the hunger in her eyes. He sees the desperation. The real question is, when he finally learns the true source of those scars, when he learns she is a dead, convicted murderer, will he reject her? Or will his whole philosophy of second chances, which he so passionately applies to the town and the land, apply to her too?
It's an incredibly precarious position. But for now, at least, the wind has died down. She has a cabin, she has a job, she has boots, she has taken the first tentative breath of her second life.
And she's standing in a field of wildflowers. It's a beautiful, vibrant, and incredibly dangerous place for her to be.
That is where we leave Leigh for today. Standing in the flowers, holding a machete, with a throbbing wrist and a heart that is starting to beat just a little too fast for a ghost.
It really makes you think about the masks we all wear, doesn't it? Hopefully, they're a little less high stakes than Leigh's, but we all have versions of ourselves we present just to get by.
And the incredible relief of finally being able to put them down. Thank you for walking us through all of this. There's so much more to unpack in the rest of this book. We haven't even touched on the mystery of her actual crime, but this setup is just masterfully done.
It really is a powerful, powerful start.
And to you listening, thank you for being here with us. Are you surviving or are you living? And who are you letting see your scars? We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.